Welcome to the Barker Podcast Collection.
I suck, you suck, I suck at Call of Duty. You suck. You suck. You suck.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard, and this week I'm just on my own. We were having some sound issues this week, and people weren't really around. But, you know, in the interest of providing a dutiful service to you loyal listeners, I've decided that I'm going to try and bash through a few news stories on my own. So, yeah, this is going to be a bit weird, but we'll see how we get on. Anyway, okay, so first story is that Nvidia have just announced their new wave of video cards due out later this month and early June. We've got the GTX 1080 and 1070 video cards, which are promising to deliver a level of performance rivaling even Nvidia's most powerful card on the market right now, the Titan and the 980 Ti. It looks like we're going to be ushering in a whole new generation of video cards that I guess are going to kind of pave the way for the future of VR and all that exciting 4K stuff going on. Both cards have 8 gigs of DDR5X memory. I think that's really, really interesting, and I can't wait. I mean, I don't know if I'm quite ready for a video card upgrade myself. I've had the 970 for about 18 months now, and I've not really hit many walls so far. The odd game, like perhaps Rise of the Tomb Raider, has, I've not been able to run it on its most highest settings, but those high settings really are like 4K settings, and I'm not really running that kind of rig anymore, or ever. I've never run a 4K rig, I wish. But yeah, with these new video cards, it certainly looks like that'll be an achievable thing. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll hold out until the end of the year. I'd like to get a couple of years out of these cards. They're not cheap even at the entry level. So if I'm paying 250 quid for a video card, I certainly want to get as much bang for my buck as I can. That's happening, and it's all very exciting times. And really, really good timing as well. What with the VR headsets launching, apparently. Patrick has his Vive already. I went round to try it the other day, and we'll be recording a show in the future where we go into detail on some of those experiences. But suffice it to say that I don't know if it's if the Vive is so much a replacement for conventional video games as it might be a replacement for traditional exercise. I certainly was feeling plenty worn out after just a couple of hours with hover junkers and a few other things that we tried. That's all cool. Nintendo have announced a date for their next console. We don't really cover Nintendo much on this show because they're not really, I don't know, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for the company. I'm not sure about some of the decisions they've made lately, but they're still plodding along and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But I don't know if me or the other guys on this show are really the target market for them anymore. But yeah, the NX is still the code name for Nintendo's console, and it looks like they're targeting March 2017 for that. We don't know what it is yet. They've said they're not showing it at E3, which is interesting. And a lot of people are miffed that the Zelda that was promised for the Wii U console looks like it will be releasing in tandem with the NX version. So yeah, a lot of people miffed about that. I'm not so bothered. I'm not really that invested in Nintendo. as a company these days. Not since the Super Nintendo, really. But yeah, it looks like that's happening, and we'll probably cover it in some detail as we learn more. Talking of consoles, the PS4 Neo, as it's being referred to, is the code name of a potential hardware revision of the Sony hardware. It looks like that's definitely happening. It looks like we're looking at a buff to the CPU, GPU and RAM. They've been very quick to say, though, that none of the games that are optimized for the more powerful hardware can have any kind of gameplay features that won't work on the older hardware. So yeah, so what we're looking at is perhaps a situation whereby games come out with like sort of perhaps different quality settings for the different types of hardware. You know, perhaps like higher resolution, better frame rates. But yeah, personally, I was all primed and ready to buy a PS4 this year. I was looking forward to the new Uncharted game, which has got some stunning reviews, people hailing it as the very best of the series and stuff, and I was very much excited for that. I'd in fact pre-ordered the special edition Uncharted version of the PS4, but I've decided to put that on hold now until we find out more about this new hardware, because I'll be damned if I'm going to buy a PS4 and discover that I've got inferior hardware, especially since I'm in the market for a 4K TV as well. So that's that. I guess at the opposite end of the spectrum, Microsoft announced that they were discontinuing production of the Xbox 360. I know I have friends who are always a little bit dubious about the lifespan of the Xbox after their very first version of the hardware was kind of unceremoniously dumped not too long after the 360 was launched. But no, they had a really good run. I think, God, at least a decade or so, and I thought it was a brilliant machine. I spent a large chunk of the last decade with that as my primary machine, you know. I was so glad at the time when I was at university and they announced that the Xbox 360 would be HD and stuff, and I was relieved that I wouldn't have to worry about upgrading my PC or anything for a little while. And yeah, it lasted me a good long time. Played some excellent games on the 360, BioShock, Fallout, Deus Ex, Human Revolution, fantastic. But you know, since I went back to PC, my own 360 has kind of been in the cupboard, in a box. So yeah, but no, I just thought it was worth mentioning that, since yeah, it's definitely a landmark in gaming as far as I'm concerned. Got a few bits of game news here. John Romero, the infamous developer of the likes of Doom and Quake, and to a lesser extent Daikatana, the ill-fated disappointment that game was back in the day. He's just launched a Kickstarter for a game that he's calling Black Box, and it looks like, Black Room. And it looks like he was trying to create a game that sort of harks back to the good old days of first-person shooters. But with no demo to show, they've decided to put their Kickstarter on hold and wait till they've got something more to show, really. They were asking for $700,000. The Kickstarter didn't kind of kick off massively, to say the least. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was, as much as they say that it's because they didn't really have too much to show, I think it might also be simply a case of perhaps a lack of confidence, maybe. Who knows? Vampire Bloodlines franchise was very recently bought up by Paradox, and also a trademark was filed on April 26th to secure the IP. So with those two bits of information, it could be possible that a new game in that series may be underway. It could just be that they're renewing the trademark so that they can still sell the original game on the likes of GOG and Steam and whatnot. It's become a bit of a cult classic over the years, and it's not entirely surprising that they'd want to hang on to that. But yeah, a sequel would be great, or even a proper HD remake. That would be plenty fine. But yeah, we'll just have to see what happens there. It's all still very speculative, and we don't really know exactly what's going on there, but thought it was worth mentioning. The release date for Dishonored II has been announced. It's going to be coming out on the 11th of November. So with that and Deus Ex Mankind Divided, I'm personally very much looking forward to a couple of more sort of immersive first-person games. Don't really go into release dates too much here. We'd rather talk about things that we tried or you know, games that we're actually playing. But yeah, they did announce the actual voice cast for Dishonored 2, and it's looking pretty impressive. Susan Sarandon, Lena Headey from Game of Thrones, John Slattery from Mad Men and Captain America Civil War, Vincent D'Onofrio, who recently had a remarkable turn as Wilson Fisk on Daredevil, Rosario Dawson also from Daredevil, Pedro Pascal, who played Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones, Sam Rockwell, Robin Lord Taylor. I don't really know who that is, but yeah, really impressive, and yeah, looking forward to that. I recently played the Dishonored games, as you may have heard a few episodes ago, and yeah, that's a really great series that has aged incredibly well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the next one will bring. Dawn of War 3 was also recently announced. I played the original Dawn of War way back. This is the Warhammer 40k RTS, and I never played the second one, although I'm sure I do believe I might have picked it up in a Humble Bundle a few weeks back. But yeah, I don't know. I think this new Dawn of War is going to promise. I think this new Dawn of War is going to usher a return to the more traditional template of the original game. I understand Dawn of War 2 kind of focused things in a bit more and made it more like a sort of action RPG. Although, you know, that's all I know. And yeah, so I don't know if I'll go back. I'm a little bit shy when it comes to RTS games. I'm sort of not really sure if I'm going to go for the Warhammer Total War or not. It all looks like it could be incredibly hard work, but who knows. I wouldn't mind giving the new Homeworld a go. I did like those games. Another game that was announced at PAX a few weeks ago, Pyre, is looking quite promising. I loved Bastion. I've still not actually sunk my teeth into Transistor yet, but I am interested in Pyre because it looks like a cross between people liken it to Oregon Trail, but to me, I probably liken it more to Banner Saga, the sequel to which I recently enjoyed, and we'll talk about in more detail when I have someone to actually talk to about it. But yeah, Pyre looks like a mashup of that kind of journeying sort of RPG type stuff, but also with these isometric battles that sort of look almost more like a sports game. I can only really go on what the video looks like, but certainly looks very promising. Another game that I very much like the look of that was recently announced is 7, which is by some of the devs who worked on The Witcher. And in this game, it's like an isometric, very highly detailed visually, and it's like a stealth game, and it's all built in the Unreal 4 engine. So yeah, definitely check out the link to that in the show notes. Looks very cool. Ken Levine has announced that he's making an interactive Twilight Zone movie, which is interesting. Some kind of interactive video type thing. At least that's what would be suggested from the other people he's involved with to make this. Always got plenty of time for things that Ken Levine's involved in. Even if Bioshock Infinite was perhaps a little disappointing in the gameplay stakes, it was the storyline and everything behind it was very compelling, as you'd expect from a guy who started out as a screenwriter. And what else we got here? Fallout 4 mods going into open beta on PC. I'm kind of a bit over Fallout now, but the DLC is coming out, so it'll be interesting to see what the community can add to the game as well. And that'll be rolling out, as they announced at E3 last year, to Xbox One in May and PS4 in June. And I think I'll leave it there. Thanks for your patience in listening to this solo Not Playing podcast. Hopefully normal service will be resumed next episode. But yeah, until then, this has been the Not Playing podcast in partnership with notlistening.co.uk, where you can also hear myself and Ian talk about movies and TV on the Not Watching podcast, and Adam Ashenwill talk about all manner of funny things on the Not Listening podcast. You can email us at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet at or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. You can find the show notes for this show at notlistening.co.uk, and if you're listening to us on iTunes, then please do give us a review. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. See ya.
My friend, I'm inclined to agree, 'cause I suck. You suck. I suck.